What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we have mass liquidations over here in the cryptocurrency market with everything just red as can possibly be. With CoinGlass over here showing $385 million in liquidations here overnight and the highest levels of liquidations in at least 3 months. As Bitcoin still continues to hold itself at the lows down here. We, of course, have had a crazy week with the SEC going after Coinbase, Binance, and have watched really the tokens that they've accused of being securities kind of lead the way in this pull down. And then now, something is obviously triggered overnight. As you can see the drawdown here for Cardano, and then suddenly here in this 15-minute candle, there becomes one big swoosh, pulling down 15% just within that 15-minute candle. Same thing for Matic and Solana, which were included in the lawsuits there by the SEC and were announced that they're going to be delisted from Robinhood later this month. But obviously, this moment in time triggered a liquidation to happen in the market. And we watched the whole market get impacted by this. And of course, all these liquidations are taking place down here near these lows, this place we've been talking about for the last 2 months. The same spot where the SEC goes after Coinbase and XRP, taking that knockback there from those retracement levels. So the hopes of a breakout happening here for XRP at the retracements probably just got tamed a little bit. But if you're anything like me, you probably woke up, you saw all this and said, whoa, what's going on? And that just appears to be what is happening here. We're back at the bottom of our range. We know the news that has happened as we're at the bottom, as we're reaching excessiveness. We're watching liquidations happen throughout the market. And of course, all that selling of those assets announced yesterday and throughout the week aren't helping. I talked about this in a live stream once of for those who were not here during the 2018, 2019, 2020 bear market and what it was like, that we had gone through all this stuff, pulling all the way down, your whole capitulation, everything's hitting the fan. Then we pull back up. And then as we were deep into it, we ended up getting hit with C19. And that about enough time had elapsed. It was just telling the story of for those who are rookies in the market, the veterans have been through these moments where we had C19 come this late in the game. And that some event caused mass liquidations that eventually led to prices hitting the fan momentarily until things were able to turn back up. And that we were kind of exactly at that amount of time of when that had actually happened back in 2018 through 2020. And it's almost like you couldn't script it any better for a government entity to come in and try to be the catalyst for that to occur. Now you can pick your own poison, determine which one you think is better. The sky is falling and nobody knows if they're going to survive, or the government is trying to destroy an industry. Either way, the narrative always changes and the reason why always changes. But in the end, the same kind of markers tend to show up on these charts. And so here we are at the bottom end of that range. We have mass liquidations happening now. Typically, the ending of those moves to the downside are going to be marked with those big kerplunks like we're seeing over there on Cardano, like we're seeing on a lot of these altcoins where there's that 15-minute wick that just goes. And when things bottom out, we can go with a multitude of things. You can have a cruel summer, which we've been talking about, where things just kind of drag out for a long time, or look for a high volume reversal. So for example, looking over here on Cardano, looking for exceptionally high volume, high sell volume. And so we're going to get that exceptionally high sell volume, not from people panicking. Yes, people are going to wake up in the morning, they're going to look at this stuff and they're going to panic for sure. But that's not where that sell volume comes from. It's coming from an automatic triggering of liquidations. So we look for a complete flush of leverage out of the system and then look for exceptionally high buy volume to come back on the other side to give the signal saying, that was it, we're done. An example of how reversals show up is you're going to see both of them here on Bitcoin from back in 2019 and 2020. And we'll reference that C19 sell-off in there. But you can see what happens when you get to the peak, right? You see the excessive buy volume. You see that there's probably short liquidations that get taken out up here, extreme YOLO, FOMO buying that happens at the top, the most buy volume you'll see. And then suddenly in comes a massive amount of selling volume to follow it up the very next day. That marks your reversal. Now move over to C19. What do you see? You see massive amounts of sell volume that come in here. The sky is falling. Everybody thinks the world is over. And then buried in all the fear and terror is a massive amount of buy volume that arrives in there. And most people didn't pay attention to that, still thinking the sky was falling, that we were going to go way down lower, way down lower. But this is typically what we'll see when reversals are showing up in big directions. Now, if we want to look at a chart that had a similar situation to this from back in 2020, with the XRP community, it's been like we've been standing on this lone island all by ourselves, yelling, anybody out there? And now everybody's kind of been drawn in. Their planes have all crashed and they're washing up on shore on their rafts. And that we can at least show you how it was when this happened to us. So when the SEC filed suit against XRP, there was a large, substantial fall that happened. And eventually it ended with a big fat capitulation that occurs right in here. We'll zoom in on a closer time frame. So we can look at 2-hour candles in here, and you'll see that it was kind of like what we saw over there with Cardano, that we were just creeping along. It was pretty rough. It was bad time. You got one candle right here. It's a pretty big doozy. It's a 17%er. But then it really ends with like some serious stuff, like real serious big stuff kind of comes in here to mark the bottom in here. And we get that initial first real like kind of bounce off there where people think, okay, well, was that it? The news barrage did not stop at that point. We still creeped along in here. Coinbase is announcing they're going to be delisting. I think their announcement must have came right here. You had Grayscale XRP Trust. They're dumping all of their XRP. The barrage of torture and terror kept going. And eventually, from start to finish, it was about 8 days. If you asked me now to reflect back on my memory how long that was, it felt like that lasted weeks. It's such a vivid memory of my life and what that was like that it felt like it lasted a couple of weeks. I'm surprised to see 8 days, but that marked the bottom. So that's something else we can keep our eyes out for here, is that with these types of excessive sell-offs, finally some type of support comes in here and it seems like it's wanting to hold to finally go on and then that be the end of it. So, if you looked at this and you studied what we've done in 2023, you would see Wyckoff accumulation happening in here. This would be the spring phase. That's what we've talked about over here on this side for Ethereum. That's what you have appearing over here for Atom or Cosmos. We've talked about the different Wyckoff accumulation schematics that happen. I could paste the schematic here onto the chart for us right now, and you can just see that this is our spring phase. As we head down, another thing we talk about is the infamous creek. As with the anatomy of a trading range, schematic 1, you have your creek to then go into kerplunk for spring phase, which is what we've seen working on over here for Atom for over a year at this point. The challenge of these, of course, is when you're in these on whether or not you're going to have a spring phase or just keep that creek on going, having a last point of support. Well, there you go. Creek. Boom. With a pretty scary narrative to go with it, which we can see over here on Cardano as well. Another one of the coins taking the blunt hit, as it was also accused of being a security and getting delisted from Robinhood. One of those ones being delisted from Robinhood being Solana. And one thing we talked about with Solana is just its impeccable mirroring of what the crash for Ethereum looked like back in 2018. I talked about, when we had that automatic rally come out of there for Solana to get its way shooting its way back up. Like, that's it. I'm taking it out to make this nearly a risk-free trade. But Solana definitely held its own for 5 months until finally coming back down to hit these support levels down in here. So you have the confluence of that occurring finally after 5 months. It's almost like it was never going to happen, but now eventually finally getting it to come back and backtest support levels. Now let's be straight with Solana here for a second. It's got developer decline, obviously big relationship with FTX and all that nonsense. Being delisted off of Robinhood doesn't exactly have all the elements necessary for an Ethereum style run of what you would be looking for, like we experienced back here. But nonetheless, it finally has come down to do it. All while Bitcoin has finally reached back down here. And after following this for months on end and just kind of watching retail sentiment and retail behavior, these are always such good teaching lessons to just learn from the market. Of course, there was just no way possible for me to be able to predict that the SEC was going to come in with full wrath this week and label a dozen coins from, the top of the market. These aren't just your Bits Lotto exchanges like the DOJ went after a couple of months ago. These are big names in the market. Your Cardanos, your Solanas, your Near Protocols, BNB, Binance. But I all the time talk about like magical unicorn fairy dust, puppet masters pulling puppet strings, God, or simulation. But for these things to just kind of show up where they are, the timing of them, you feel so suspect that something is weird and that events kind of get timed to occur when they're supposed to. And like you look back through what happened in here, and in particular, you look back in here and how like even on May 15th, I had written a newsletter titled Meme Coin Mania, a look at the charts, optimistic or a warning sign. And in this news article, I just really dived into what we were seeing with meme coins and everybody who was fearful previously now just throwing caution to the wind, chasing every meme coin ever, and how we had actually seen that happen before, and that we had seen it happen before precisely where we were seeing it happen right now. And it was right before things got real sketchy in the market, when we had things like SHIB taking off, and that there's no way I could have predicted the SEC would have come in here and just caused this type of havoc to happen in here. But it's just like, you think how baked into the cake is this? Like, is this a simulation? This is absolutely insane to happen. You expect a short squeeze, a pullback, a ride back up to a 702 retracement. Everybody goes absolutely insane for meme coins as we're back into the retracement. We get back down to support, and then just news, liquidations, everything hits the fan. It's insane. I'm telling you, it's just bizarre, and it makes you look at the world totally different. But things are in high motion right now. Hopefully this is just Wyckoff finishing itself off, a spring phase happening here for a lot of stuff in the market. We've had big news. There's been a lot of people rotating their portfolios, adjusting them. And then now we're seeing some liquidations happening in here. Nothing uncommon to happen in crypto, but of course, never feels good. As for XRP, still that fight just continues to rage on. And the war is not over, but boy, the battle sure took a swing yesterday. Or I guess it was only 3 or 4 hours ago. I guess I'm recording here practically in the middle of the night. But you know, this is nothing we haven't talked about. So hopefully we're nearing the end of this move. The thing we have going for us is that, you know, Bitcoin's back at the level that we thought it would get to. And now we're just kind of experiencing liquidations happening there with a narrative. So things I'll be looking for is at least at first like a stability of prices. Like we talked about with XRP, there was the initial stability of prices, and then there was one more push to happen down lower. That's also typically what you do see in a spring phase happen. Even in these phases of spring, if a new low gets set on an asset, typically it's just finding that first support, kind of teasing that was the actual bottom. Then one more flush and everybody just completely throws in the towel and they say, that's it, I'm over, that's it, I'm out. We're going way lower. And that's usually the retail sentiment, is that when some type of bounce comes in, there will be a bunch of optimism that was the low. And then when the next low gets set, nobody believes that was the real low. They'll sell and they'll expect lower. And it's kind of the order of operations. At least that's how it happened here. That's how it happened with the FTX collapse. And undoubtedly, it's probably what retail behavior is going to be like again, because it's always literally the same. It never changes. They even like collectively as a group chase meme coins at the exact same time together. It's a crazy phenomenon. But what do you know? As we get down here, things get crazy. Some stuff is catching some supports in here, but I'm not really seeing anything like screaming to me like an obvious bottom is in or an obvious reversal is taking place just yet. Like mentioned, if there's like a volume signature that signs it real clearly like that, that's a great one. Otherwise, looking for more classic structures to start forming themselves, in particular crashing structures. So even in crashing structures that we know and we talk about all the time, they're typically not going to be, hey, we're crashing up, and then we go to moon. Typically, there is going to be some type of fake, and then that's how the bottom will usually come in. So we're still kind of waiting on that moment to show up. And then for it to be like an optimistic, like maybe a V bottom can come out of this thing, is that we would want to be looking for signature profiles to give us that. And we don't have that yet. So otherwise, we just wait for the cruel summer to continue on. And hopefully by next week, when we get all of our fingers crossed, better news, everybody just comes FOMOing right back in. Otherwise, I just want to show you guys some of the stuff that I'm seeing over there in the market. Obviously, XRP not able to get through that 786. Bitcoin still able to hold up. Ethereum holding up relatively okay, but those coins that have all gotten the designation of being securities by the SEC in these lawsuits versus Binance and versus Coinbase taking the biggest brunt of the hits over the course of the week. And then now we've seen a liquidation event take place in the market. Good news is we're probably closer to this whole thing being over than we are of it just starting. I know for a lot of people, they think it's just starting. Everything's crazy. But the fact that we've watched Bitcoin doing this for the last couple of months, kind of waiting for this moment to get here, and then now we're starting to see some liquidations pile through the market with some negative news. It's kind of like that final rinsing. This is what it feels like to me. That final rinsing happening there at the end of a sea leg. So we'll check in again on it come Monday. Otherwise, deep breaths. Keep your eyes on those Wyckoff accumulations. And there may be a chance I go shopping here this weekend in the cryptocurrency market. So, all right, guys. I want to get this out early. I know a lot of people are waking up saying, what's going on? Figured I'd just show you the data of what's happening, where it's happening at, some of these structures and setups I'll be looking for to see a bottom come in, or if we can get the classic reversal volume to show up. But till then, I'll catch you guys on Monday. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.